the Mayans MC. I am your host, Jen, and we are going to be talking about season 2, episode 2 of the Mayans. We'll get into the title in a second, but let me introduce my co host. I have Kinte with me. Kinte, how are you?
I'm doing good, and I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Got a bit to say about this episode, which is sort of amazing for such a content thin episode, but yeah, I boy, I got a lot to say. So let's start out with like I always like to start out. Let's start out with our first impressions. Throw me your first impressions. What'd you think?
You know what's so funny is we obviously do another podcast on the show The Terror, and it's in season 2 as well. And I think we've done a complete reversal, and there's no plan or anything. I think you're more into that show than me, and I think I'm more into season 2 of Mayans than you are.
I think you actually are right, and this is not for my lack of love of the Sons of Anarchy franchise or the Mayans. If anything, last season I was so hyped about the whole story. I loved it. It was fabulous. I it's waning for me at this point. It's waning, which I'll get into in a second, but yeah, I think you're right. I think we've totally flipped. It's interesting.
Well, she likes. Let's just be honest. She's more into Aztecs than she is the Mayans.
Right. Yeah, that's probably it. That yeah, absolutely is probably it. I'm more into the more ancient history than even the Mayans, so they just don't cut it. No, I'm just joking.
Mhm.
All right, so let's talk some specifics. First, I will say at least one thing I found comfortable, which is they're back to the same rhythm. I don't know whether that first episode just had something different going on, but I found that the timing in this episode was more familiar with its beginning, middle, and kind of in between pieces, and that definitely made me feel at ease. So I liked that.
Mhm.
Um, but I watched this episode twice, and
Really?
I can't tell what's going on. I mean, there's a part of me that feels like, wow, maybe I'm just too dumb and I just don't get it. But there's another part of me that's like, what is really going on here? Am I just not paying attention to the clues that I'm supposed to be paying attention to? What am I missing? So I am going to ask you to help me understand what's happening in this episode. What do you think the overall message of this episode was in terms of story? Where are we? What are we supposed to have the stage set for now?
Well, I think I agree with you, and the way that the story is unraveling is kind of is not on par with last season and as well as the Suns. And for the first 2 episodes of a second season, it is pretty dense in story. So I'll give you that. But the thing that it lacks in story, I just loved. I love the characters. You know what I mean?
I'll agree with you there. I mean, every time Angel and JD, every time Angel and Easy, JD, sorry, Easy JD, every time that they're on the screen together, I'm always watching with rapt fascination. So
Angel's my favorite character.
there's there. What's that?
Angel's my favorite character.
He's awesome. He's
He-
really awesome. Although, my favorite character is actually Coco. So
well, you do like the creepy ones, so
shut
um,
up. He's not creepy.
well, I like him too. He's awesome. But it's just Angel. That guy is, first of all, he's a really outstanding actor.
He is. He is. He's got stage presence for sure. I mean, whenever he's on, in every scene that he's on, he really. I'm sorry, JD. I love you too, but he really does upstage JD Pardo in a way that is it's almost awesome because the character Angel I think is supposed to be pretty strong and Easy is supposed to be sort of up and coming, and that relationship almost it's almost perfect on screen because it really does feel like Angel commands more of the scenes when he's in it than EZ does. But that's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I forgot what I was gonna say. Just go ahead.
Well, you were going to say that well, I don't know exactly what you were going to say, but you were saying that the relationship between the characters and especially with Angel is pretty. That's the big draw at this point.
No, I mean I just like Angel. I love the choices he's making as an actor. He still seems, when he's not even speaking, you know what I'm saying? He just sucks up a scene in such a wonderful way. And one thing I love about his character is, like when he's not even speaking, you feel his internal conflicts. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like he does such a brilliant job of conveying, this guy who, think about his situation even more than Easy's. He has so many truths that he has to keep a secret. Not only does he have to keep Easy's truth, right, which he just found out about at the end of the season. Adelita, remember he had to hold on to that for so long. Whatever the club has him doing, he has to keep a hold of.
That's
He's probably has the most conflict of any character, even including Easy, on the show. If you really think about it, because his feet are in so many different pies, toes in so many. But I'm not going to say pools. I'm going to say in different pies. And then he really doesn't have any support. His brother, there's a situation with his brother has gotten better in this episode, but it was fractured and has always been fractured. He feels like his father loves his brother more than he loves him, so he never had that really. And then he has to be secret with Adelita. He can't come out, like he's obviously in love with her, and he has to keep that a secret as well. So even the thing that brings him the most joy, the most beautiful thing that's in his world, he can't be free with that because he can't tell everybody what's going on there. So it's actually kind of sad in a way.
Yeah.
And you see it in his face. You see it in every scene when you see him, even when he's unwinding. Like I love this scene where they go to the arcade because he needed that. He needed it more than Easy did or anything. Like I think that was just his way of, I need a break from the madness, and that presented that. So I thought that was a great scene.
I do too. I do too, actually. And if you read Twitter last night, there were so many tweets about that scene. There's something also a little bit endearing about it, which I sort of liked.
Mm-hmm.
What I find interesting about their relationship, and it seemed to unfold a little bit more this episode than I've seen it before, is that there is an implicit trust between Easy and Angel, which is sometimes I think difficult to transfer from, hey, this is the written word to this is what actually happens. But on screen, you can almost feel that it's not just that they have each other's back, it's that there is an implicit trust between the two of them. And it was super easy to see when they were in both of the fight scenes. The one where they just kind of had the quick altercation at the gas station, and then the one that was outside of the arcade. It felt very like it was almost second nature. And I mean that kind of relationship, that sibling sort of relationship, I feel like they did a really good job with that.
The best part of that scene,
What's that?
and I'm looking at it on Twitter, is when he has all these bikers coming at him, right? We're talking about Angel specifically.
Right.
And he didn't have one look of worry,
Right.
He was so cool. And that scene when he pulls out the gun and he says, "Oh, you think you're big and bad because you have a gun?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's why I have it." I love it. That was awesome. Like that scene was so cool. And then the way that it ended with, he said, "Hey, badges over patches over badges."
Right.
And they actually protected them because, there is a kinship even though they're at odds with each other. I thought it was great. I really think this episode was fun.
Don't get me wrong, okay? Because you see, I knew that I was going to have this problem walking into this podcast, this episode. It's not that I don't think that the episode was good. It's that I'm so confused about what we are supposed to be paying attention to. In each scene by itself stands alone as, hey, that was great.
Awesome.
But as an overall story for season 2, episode 2, I don't know WTF is going on. And it feels so disconcerting because I watched season 1. I know what is supposed to be happening. And for me to feel like I don't know what the heck is going on feels like, you know what it felt like? I'll tell you what it felt like. As awesome as it is, and believe me when I say that I found technical excellence and performance excellence and everything else in this episode, but I felt like I was watching an episode of Scooby-Doo and the Gang. And I don't mean that in a demeaning way. I mean, I really didn't know, okay, well, what am I supposed to pull out of this episode? And also, other than being sort of an episode to show that EZ and Angel are getting closer, which is great. I mean, I'm glad that that is starting to get resolved. And other than, show us a little bit of information that pulls the story forward with Dita and her relationship with Felipe, which we'll get to in a second. But other than that, I was just confused. It just felt like we were watching a bunch of disconnected stuff. We're chasing Mina. We're sort of experiencing a bit of Angel and EZ. We're learning a little bit about Dita and Felipe. Felipe. I'm confused. I don't get it. I want to. So fill me with your wisdom, Kinte, because I'm confused.
No, I agree with you. Like to be honest with you, I can't say that I'm totally into the storyline of this season. I think it's one of those things that we'll wait and see, and it'll become more clear as it goes along.
Right.
I think it's one of those kind of things, and that is an issue with me, right? But the reason why this show can get away with it versus like another show is the world that the characters exist in is just so awesome.
Yeah.
And it's just, what I'm saying? Like they can get away with it because, and I hate to, I'm not going to say the name of the other show we do, but I think they've set up such a great world in this show that even when, let's say the storyline is dragging or something like that, it's still so interesting because the world is interesting.
Well, I'm going to interject though and say that, but at least for me, part of my ability to be so awestruck by the world that they built had nothing to do with, well, that's not true. It did have a lot to do with season 1. It had to do with the continuation of Sons of Anarchy. And so, look, I already know walking into the Mayans what to expect in terms of how loyalty is treated, that we're dealing with, that we're dealing with criminals on the road, that we're dealing with a lot of issues that are not sort of, they're not the standard issues, but they're big issues for a TV show. They're in terms of the series, they give us a lot of meat. And they're able, I think, to pull from the foundation that was Sons of Anarchy through the Mayans, which keeps us very integrated into the story. Where I think I'm having a problem is that I don't feel like, although Mayans is completely different. So anybody who's listening and thinks that Mayans is somehow just a continuation of Sons of Anarchy, no, it really isn't. And it is definitely a very different story. And the character dynamics are very different. But I sometimes feel like the characters in the Mayans are trying to have it both ways. They're trying to be super awesome good guys who don't let anything affect and hurt the innocent. And at the same time, we're supposed to believe that they are super bad guys too who aren't afraid to just take violence into their own hands and do whatever's necessary. And it's hard for me to walk both lines. I guess I didn't have so much of a problem with it in Sons of Anarchy because the characters were never set up to sort of be on the quote unquote right side. They were just sort of not evil, but we understood that they had these strains of just super bad all the way through them, right? Does that make sense?
Right. No, it makes sense.
I don't want to harp on, too much what I find wrong with this particular episode because it's only one episode, right? So I'm not saying that there's like something intrinsically wrong. It's just I just expect so much, I think, out of Kurt Sutter and the writing team, and it so when something small happens that is kind of that I just find to be off, maybe it feels more amplified because my expectation is just so high. So that certainly seems like it could be a possibility. So
now, remember though, you were getting on the writing of the last episode. That was written by Kurt Sutter alone.
No, I wasn't getting on the writing of the episode as much as I was getting on the fact that the writing had shifted. So I'm a writer. I know my writing shifts too. Yeah, but my writing shifts too. It shifts depending upon where my emphasis is. And sometimes when your emphasis it has changed, it's noticeable. And that's what I was saying. There was a noticeable shift in the writing. It wasn't a question of whether it was good or bad. It was just a perceptible shift in how it was being presented. But this episode felt like we were back to the same timing again. Timing meaning like, I could clearly see Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. I clearly had a definitive sense of, look, I know when the rise of action is happening, and I know when the fall is about to take place. That everything felt like it was cued properly. Episode 1, it was missing those cues. I don't know why. Maybe they pulled together a lot of different material, and maybe that's why. I'm not sure, but I don't want to harp on that either because I feel like that might just be an outlier. But okay, so
I enjoyed it. It's interesting too. My friend Miosha, who's never watched the show before, she just happened to be with me watching it, and she's laughing. She's like following along, laughing right there with it. She enjoyed it as well. So
yeah, I again, this is I feel like this is the danger of any kind of criticism. I face this often when you criticize a show, even when it's good, right? There's always sort of the danger that people will misconstrue that criticism as you don't like it. And that's not what I'm saying. It's not that I don't like it. It's that there are elements to what is happening both in the first episode and in the second episode for different reasons that have left me sort of scratching my head, where I don't remember feeling that way in season 1. I mean, I went back and looked over my notes for season 1 before we started season 2, and I don't have any clear recollection of being so confused about what was happening. I felt like there was sort of a narrative progression happening that seemed very clear to me. Even when I know it wasn't clear, at least it still felt like there was heavy push behind the stories to keep them going. And here I feel like we're sort of wandering isn't the right word, but just sort of being tether led gently. And I don't quite understand why. Like, I could have done completely without everything that involved Emily. And
I was just about to say that.
Nothing in that made any sense.
The Galindo part, I just don't care this season so far. And it's not, and if you butt it up against, like, all the MC stuff was entertaining.
Right.
Even the stuff that didn't include Angel and Easy.
The trip to find Minnie.
They were at least interesting. The Galindo part, actually, I found myself wanting to fast forward through the Galindo part, So, yeah.
Well, and see, and the reason that I think that although, I mean, I'm jumping into your head, so maybe this isn't right. Tell me if I'm wrong. But I think that the reason that you felt that way is because they don't set it up.
Right.
They don't set it up to be important. I don't
care about the mother.
Gravitas around it.
I don't care about the mother. honestly don't even care why she's burnt up. Like it's like
Okay, so I do actually have big and I think important questions around her relationship with Easy and Angel's dad.
Felipe, yeah.
Yes, I do think that there is something interesting there. But
I just don't. There
going through
probably is, but I
everything
don't.
to go through to get there felt like why?
Yeah, I like. I feel like you got to have a lot of threads, right, to get a season through, and they're just starting up these different threads, and it may pay off later on where I'm like, oh man, this is totally cool, right? I'm just saying at this point, that whole section, and I mean, they're paying off something they started last season, so
Right.
this storyline is a continuation, with the mayor and all of that stuff. It's just so far it's not very interesting, but it may be later on. And sometimes that is like that with shows. There's a thread that at first or at certain points you may not be into, but then later it may pay off to something. um
Right.
I
And I think
the
the
thing
two
that
of us have done. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't like the I've said this. I don't really like Miguel and Emily's relationship. Um, it's it's not interesting to me, and I I just think they make him too weak for the position that he has, and that's my problem with his character. Like, if you are the head of a
Cartel.
cartel, you're not a weak dude.
Right.
I mean, he was strong enough to beat up a guy in jail, right? So we know he's physically capable,
Mhm.
but just he kind of lets his wife runs him, you know, and it just seems like not in control. And then I don't like his relationship with Adelita. Like, she kidnapped his child. Like, I don't think, like, what I'm saying? He kidnapped her child. He did this, what I'm saying? Like, that just seems like there's no kind of, I just don't see how there would be any kind of we're gonna work together, coming from him. And that's
Yeah.
something I think, I mean, obviously Danny Pino is awesome actor. Loved him on SVU. Glad that he's in this. I'm glad that he's playing such a different character than he played on SVU. Um, and I'm glad that, because it's hard to take a guy that, was known as pretty much a nice guy on another show and then give him like a villain role. But I don't think, they kind of made him kind of like in the beginning, like he was a tougher guy. But then, by the end of the season and now he's like a paper tiger.
Well, he's the one that actually killed the kid, right? Or
Right,
he was right there when they killed him.
right. He's, paper tiger. That's a shout out to Bill Burr. His stand up special is awesome. But but no, he's just kind of and what's up, Don, in the chat room. Um, but so I love the MC, right? I love the issue they had with the little the little fake biker gang, you know.
Oh, I really do want to actually talk about that. So keep going because I
I
definitely.
love that scene. Literally, that scene was so awesome. At the because I hate it when they make us, especially minorities, we're always like backing down. We're all, like, I hate that in movies.
Mhm.
Like, believe me, I know there's guys that wouldn't back down to nothing. You know what I'm saying? And they always kind of make us like, when I say us, I mean us people of color, like, in those kind of situations in movies and TV shows, we're always like, taking the bigger, what they call it, being the bigger person or whatever. And
Yeah.
I like where he was like, like, what I'm saying? They didn't give a shit. Like, they weren't back down and they stood up. And when all those guys surrounded them, they didn't flinch. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Right.
I love that scene, and I thought it was awesome. And I just, so, is it been perfect? No. Is there, it's somewhat disappointing because last season was so good that that and going to the ratings are pretty good, you know um they did drop, but it always drops somewhat after the premiere anyway. That's just what happens.
Right.
I mean, but it dropped very small. Um, you know, I feel like if they had a stronger opening, maybe it wouldn't have. And I think these creators got to realize, like, you got to bring it in that premiere. And a lot of times that doesn't happen on shows that we love. They
Right.
they tend to have kind of a laid back approach, and it's like, no, you got to give people chum, to keep them coming.
Yeah, I think, especially recently, I feel like it's this emphasis on, hey, if I have loyalty from my fans, they're going to stay with me.
Mhm.
And I sort of feel like that's incredible hubris because there are so many choices right now for content
Mhm.
that if you don't like something, you go grab your Netflix, go hop on Hulu, you grab your Amazon, whatever it is. And those things matter now. So if your content isn't really up to par, people are gonna notice. And I'm not saying that you have to produce a mini movie every single week. I'm saying, if you find something that people are invested in and want to keep watching, then don't mix up the formula in your season 2 so that you can explore something new. I mean, explore it by all means, but try as best you can to keep what you've got intact. And that's, I think, where I'm just struggling right now. I absolutely am invested in it. I mean, I feel the same way about the Mayans, actually, that I sort of felt about Game of Thrones all the way through. Look, I'm invested. You're not going to lose me as a fan. I love the actors. I love the technical pieces of this show are so well put together that it's almost worth watching just that as sort of a cinematic poetry. It's really, really nice. Just their transitions are kind of gorgeous. Although I will say that I do kind of miss their flashy transitions where they used to have like the stuff in the past.
I must go out on a limb about the Mayans. Of all the shows that are on right now, this might be my favorite collection of actors. As far as I
Right.
just love those characters on the show. They fit so perfectly. They look the part, and I really enjoy them. Now, in these first two episodes, we haven't seen enough Coco, we haven't seen enough Bishop, you know,
Yeah.
and some of those guys. But I love those guys. Those guys are awesome. They're really good. And if you guys are listening out there, I'm going to start reaching out. I would love to get you guys on the show. And I'm not just saying that to get you on the show, but um, like I really like want to talk to these cats because they're just killing it, and I think they're like one of my favorite overall casts. On a TV show is the Mayans cast. I mean,
You know,
even the bad guys on the show, which are
yeah.
which would be the quote unquote good guys in real life, right?
I was just gonna say the thing that I felt like was missing out of this episode was Potter.
Yeah, well, he's gonna come back
Of
strong.
course, I know he'll come back,
He's
but I
like Jaws,
I mean, like there is yeah, he's like a bad penny. He just keeps turning up.
right?
But I have this sort of like I love that love hate relationship that I feel towards some of the characters in this series. But that's what I'm going to go back to this because I think it's kind of important, right? It feels a little bit like they've toned it down. And I mean, that sounds ridiculous, but it does. It feels like we are watching a little bit of a toned down, at least in the first two episodes, version of what we saw in season 1. And it's sort of weird because if anything, it feels like it should be ramping up and not fading down. And I'm not exactly sure why that's happening. Maybe it is because they really need to build some things up. But if they are trying to build things up, other than the easy Angel relationship, which we saw pretty clearly, and the Dita Felipe little piece, what else did we actually get out of this episode? Because I mean, I'm really struggling, and I'm not kidding. I'm not saying this facetiously. I'm not saying this with any amount of sarcasm. I'm really confused about what we were supposed to pick out of this episode, except those two things. Those two narratives felt very clear to me, but I didn't feel. What was the point of having the Maya? Were we supposed to see the Mayans running around after Minnie because that sets up them uh, with the juxtaposition of the Mercs? I mean, is that what's supposed to be happening? Because I just don't quite get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is all setup episodes, and you know, and remember, I've criticized it in other shows, and but the only way this works is if you're entertained during the process. Because I remember you were saying, well, you say it, the terror. You were saying, look, they're setting up something for the future, and it's going to pay off. And it's like, yeah, that's true, but the present has to be interesting. And to be honest with you, I would say 85% of this episode, I was into it, you know? So, and that's big for me because, as a lot of people, I got a lot of stuff going on, and you know what I'm saying? And so for
Right.
me to sit down and to watch something like there's some other things like that we've done, I have to get through in a couple of settings. This one, I watched it from beginning and then it when an episode feels short to me, like, wow, dang, it's over already. Like, that's a good sign.
Well, and again, I think we sort of, like you said, we just sort of flipped a little bit in terms of where our well, maybe not our expectations, but what we are getting out of it. To be honest, I actually am still very entertained by the Mayans. I still really love it. I
Mm-hmm.
My criticism almost comes out of love for what I was experiencing in season one,
Mm-hmm.
not because, hey, I want to tear down the show or make anybody seem like they are less than. This is really all about, for me, sort of trying to at least get my bearings about what it is that I should be expecting over this next season, because I just don't know. I can't I can't quite put my finger on what
Well,
has
I mean,
happened in season 1 and season 2. I mean, I'm sorry, episode 1 and episode 2 that is supposed to carry my attention.
well,
Does
I mean, it seems pretty clear to me they're gonna have they're having conflict with the Mercs. Um, the whole happy situation. There's gonna be land issues. I mean, it's pretty clear. I mean, what they're setting up. Adelita's pregnancy and Angel, the whole that situation. I mean, they said it. They're clearly setting up the threads. We know what's gonna happen, so it's gonna play out. The whole situation with the Mercs, and then the happy thing is going to be huge.
the what thing?
Happy.
Oh. Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, don't get me wrong. I'm not, I'm not dumb. I can see the stuff that's happening. What I can't see is, I don't know. I guess maybe there's too much going on. Maybe there's too many things that are happening here that I just don't have a handle on. I can tell you that I just really felt very out of sorts this episode in my I just didn't know what I was supposed to be tracking. What I got, I think the major thing about Angel and EZ sort of reconciling and pulling things together. But I got to tell you, that the whole point of them going where they were going was to what? Even that seems less than clear. In your words, tell me why you think EZ and Angel hopped on the road. I
Well,
mean, solving the mystery, but what was the intent?
well, I mean, it was pretty much. I mean, remember, they thought to put them together on that mission so that they can clear whatever issue they had. That's the MC, and then also they felt like this period of time would be some way that I think it was for them to bond back, because the way it ended in the first season, they needed to have a moment for the audience so that they can, okay, they're kind of back to, you know they've come to some kind of understanding. So I mean, that's what that was particularly for. And then it sets up the thing with the prostitute and I think that was a prostitute, right? Yeah. and the cops and all of that
But where were they going?
to meet with the other MCs.
They were going to meet with the other MC.
Yeah, remember that was set up in the first episode.
See, I don't even know how I missed
And
that.
I'm usually the one that is like,
Yeah.
so no, yeah, yeah, good. You said you saw it twice? Maybe
Yeah.
you need to see it like 2 more times.
Maybe the same two more times.
Pretty clear. It was pretty clear what was going on. But
Well, okay, so I mean, I know ultimately what they are trying to
uh-huh.
understand, and you did sort of pick that up at the very beginning that
Right.
the Easy's been living with a pretty heavy burden, which is he knows who killed his mom,
Right.
and he wants some kind of justice out of this, but how to get it is another story. And his reveal to Angel did feel like that was pretty not just important, but also I think Angel even says, "Oh, you've been living with this for a really long time. That must have been really hard." And I definitely agree. That was one of the most poignant, I think, pieces of the episode. I where I got confused was they hit the road, but what was their intended destination? That to me wasn't clear.
Yeah, they were meeting with the MC about the business of the club. And this was something that was set forth in the first episode
But
because
but
the
wait a
reason
minute.
why they
Wait,
put
no, wait a minute. Because Easy says that he's got it. He lies and he says, "Hey, I got this parole stuff to go take care of."
Mhm.
So, and I'm only going to bring Angel because I figure, hey, some brother
Well,
bonding time.
he told him that one of the reasons why he wanted in on it was so that he could take care of this other thing as well.
But that's a lie.
Right, it's a lie.
So why did he lie? What was the intention? Yeah, maybe I do need to go back and watch this again because honestly, I can't remember, or at least I don't have sort of the I'm not pulling together the things that need to be pulled together to understand why did why did EZ need to lie to the club to say no, I'm going to go take care of this parole stuff, blah blah blah, and I only want to take Angel. That I understood why he only wanted to take Angel because he didn't want anybody else to know what he was doing. But what was it that they were supposed to be going to do?
Wait, say that one more time.
Okay, so the beginning of the episode basically, we see that that Easy reveals to Angel what he knows about who killed his mom, or
Right,
what he thinks, right?
right.
And it seems like they make a plan to go do something. What
Okay.
is that something that they're going to go hit the road and do?
Well, I think they're trying to figure out what they're gonna do about the happy situation.
See, I feel like I missed a piece of this. I really do. And maybe another watch through will help. But I do think that I missed a part of what was happening here. What I pulled away, and maybe this is adding to the overall confusion of what, me not being able to track what's happening in this episode. Because each individual piece, again, as I go back through it, it was awesome. Each individual piece was great. It's what was the point of this episode? To get Easy and Angel
Mhm.
where were they supposed
Well,
to
remember, there's the part where he's like, oh, he has a house in Charming, and he's like, well, what do you think you're gonna do? Just go to his house and say hi and take him out for coffee or something like that?
right,
Yeah.
right. So okay, so I mean if that was the intent, if the intent was to get close,
Remember, yeah,
then
they're
okay.
closer in proximity now. Now they're they're at the MC, that's close to them. So this is all like they're trying to figure out what they're gonna do because they haven't quite figured out what they're gonna do yet.
Huh. Well, I'm definitely gonna have to do like some kind of walk through myself so that I can kind of story plot out what's happening here because I personally I'm just the kind of person who doesn't like the idea that I'm not getting all the information when I absolutely know that anything that Kurt Sutter writes and anything that a team that he would put together would write would leave so obvious an open hole. That's just not Kurt Sutter at all. And so it feels like it's falling on me to make that connection, and I'm just not getting it. That's why I was trying to lean on you to see if you could help me. But
Well, I mean, I don't know what you. I mean, it's pretty clear. I don't know why you're having such a hard time. I mean, they went on this trip to go to where Charming area, right?
mm-hmm.
And part of it is they're trying to figure out what they want to do. I thought you meant from what was the business that the MC had them doing, but they want to get. He was sitting there plotting out a map of trying to see where he lived at and everything, and
Right, saw that.
they hadn't decided. They had not decided what they were going to do as far as, are we going to just kill this guy? Are we going to have a conversation with him, or what we're going to do? So it's still kind of, I mean, it's open ended. They don't know yet what they're going to do, and this is something that's going to play out, over time.
Right. Yeah. I definitely.
Turn out that I'm thinking it's going to turn out that Happy really didn't kill him.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering that myself.
Yeah, because because I don't think I think it's gonna, but then they're gonna he's gonna help him put him on to who might have done it.
I mean, we should do the right shout out, right? Because I mean, basically, Easy and Angel, when they get to Stockton, they they're with the they're with uh
Right.
Alvarez,
Right.
right? Who was the original charter from Sons of Anarchy, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, so that piece. I mean, I'm not saying that like I don't see all those pieces. I guess I just keep trying to understand what what is it that they think that they're gonna do here. That's I guess what I'm just not understanding. But maybe it'll get clearer in another episode. Maybe in the next episode it'll actually feel like there's something more clear happening, and maybe that's we just need to wait that. Before we go, I really do want to touch on that other group, right? The other group, they were called the Swole Boys,
Yeah.
which just the name, oh my god,
Yeah.
just wow. Can you get more hipster than the Swole Boys?
Right.
That was hilarious. Um, I like you said, one, I love that Angel and Easy don't back down. That was really great. But two, I gotta say, there is something richly satisfying about watching a bunch of, pardon my language, douchey guys get owned.
Right.
Just felt so satisfying. Like, yeah, okay, there's actual justice in the world.
Yeah, and they had them surrounded, and they were able to get to their car and get to their gun, you know, just yeah, it's pretty
It felt really good. That
yeah,
actually felt really good.
great scene.
So, all right, I guess I should say one more thing. Uh, what is it that you think happened at the end?
What do you mean?
Well, what do you think the significance of what we saw at the end was?
I mean that that one of their members were murdered, and they won't be able to leave that unpunished. They're gonna have to. Those guys are gonna have to pay for that. That's just to set up conflict.
It felt to me like that was it was a good way, a really good plot way of getting the group to basically to stick around, for everybody to have to stick together to be able to deal with this.
Right.
So it adds some staying power to them then also being able to find out about Happy.
Okay.
I liked it. I mean, I think it was actually that was actually pretty clever in the sense that it gave us a bit of meat to chew on.
Ah, there you go. Meat to chew on.
I
In the
really
week,
like that.
in the week or meat.
What's that?
The week or meat.
The weak are meat. It's so true. I mean, cross platform series. the weak are always meat. That's just goes with the territory. I'm gonna say one more thing about this episode, in terms of what some technical stuff that I found absolutely brilliant. This episode does some really cool things with sound editing. I I I I have all these little notes, which at some point I think I will publish these notes because I feel like they just deserve a place on the internet all by themselves. Um, there were some of the stuff that they did with sound editing in this episode. It was kind of brilliant because you could really tell that none of this stuff actually existed, right? And the transitional sounds that they put into each scene worked so well. I was really impressed by it, very impressed. Um, Specifically, I have to say that where the Mayan seems to shine on almost every level every single time is in the ability of the show to make everything feel as technically smooth as absolutely possible. I mean, I never have any doubt that what they say is happening is actually happening. Like, I never question the world as it is. I don't question the cars as they line up. I don't question them being on motorcycles doing crazy stunts. I never question any of that. It all always feels so real. And that big fog cloud of burning rubber at the as they're trying to get away from the cops, even that, as much as I would say, well, maybe that can happen, maybe it can't, I have no idea, I didn't even question it because technically it's just so seamless that you are totally taken out of space and time into the fictional world. And I absolutely adore that. So, to everybody who is behind the scenes of the Mayans that don't get your own IMDb page, that don't get celebrated, dudes and gals and everybody, I'm watching. I love it. I absolutely am fascinated by the way that this show comes together. It is just brilliant. So big shout out to them.
All right. No,
All right.
I definitely agree.
So, any closing words? Anything you want?
No, that's it. It's well said.
So, just so that everybody knows, hopefully, I'm going to jump ahead to Kinte's Where Can We Find You on social media. But I just want to let everybody know that the Indie Radio website it's in transition. So look for something really big coming super soon. And with that, Kinte, how can we find you on social media?
Wait, I have a trans website?
You have a transitional website.
Okay.
A trans website. Yes, it's transcontinental. It's also trans global.
Oh, okay. All right. Hey, it's good to know. You can get me at Kinte F on Twitter, Kinte Ferguson, Fergerson on Instagram. And then you can get me at Indie Radio soon, indie.radio.org. So get me a lot of places.
And you can find me on Twitter at following bliss1 always. And you can find my websites at moviesmakethemeal.com and criticallaughs.com. So until next week, after I've had a chance to view this yet again, we'll begin talking about episode 3.
All right. Looking forward to it. Oh, and remember, tomorrow night, the Cinema de Fromage finale.
Oh, can't forget that. That's going to be exciting. Strange Brew versus
Dawn of the Dead, isn't it?
Dawn of the Dead. Yep, that's the one.
Peace.
Going to be exciting.